Hello there, I am the eclectic selector Lady Loy on Gold Standard Radio, and as you know, I talk about various topics, and I wanted to share with you one of my sensitive topics, which I think is important, which is racism. Because we live in a world where it seems to be coming more and more in our faces, and I wanted to know whether or not it can change, and whether it's very difficult when people have an ingrained mindset and to try to change it. And I'm not even talking to them about changing it. So I guess it's about raising awareness. So I wanted to go through quickly about how I've paralleled racism with addiction. And yes, I'm going to read from my notes like I normally do so I don't go off track. And so let's go. Is racism an addiction? And if so, withdrawal can be a challenge. Racism is a word that carries a lot of weight. Sometimes it's loud, sometimes it's quiet, sneaking into our thoughts without noticing. But here's something to consider. What if racism is more like a habit? Something learned, repeated, and reinforced over time, like an addiction. Sometimes the habits of prejudice are reinforced not just by what we see around us, but by who says it and how they say it. You might notice that when someone comes across as clever, educated, or confident, their words carry extra weight, even if ideas are harmful. Sometimes politicians, academics, and writers use complex scientific language to justify racial hierarchies, and they do this to influence public attitudes. It is sometimes known as intellectual grooming, where ideas are normalized through respect of authority. Now, let me just, I hate this, but it's technology. The uneducated or less informed person may place the academic on a pedestal, thinking that they are above simplistic ideas. They feel validated. The intellectual is articulating what they already think, so it feels right. They adopt more extreme positions gradually because an authority figure, for example, Nigel Farage, frames them as rational or morally justified. So why is this dangerous? It's because it can radicalize otherwise moderate individuals slowly and subtly. Because it's framed in intellectual language, people may dismiss counter-arguments as simplistic or uninformed. And last but not least, authority validates prejudice, which reinforces loyalty to the authority and suppresses independent thinking. The problem arises when those who have been influenced by academia do not realize it, do not question it, and accept authority as fact. How do we encourage critical thinking, and how do we facilitate simple debates in simple English and discussions in simple English for those who do not fully understand complex terms but feel too embarrassed to admit it, so the racism can be reduced? Because I'm noticing a dangerous form of influence where authority and cleverness are weaponized to reinforce prejudice, that is why I'm concerned. The uneducated listener sees sophistication and assumes correctness, while the academic subtly rewards and validates bias, often without overtly saying anything extreme. And these are just my thoughts, just my opinion. Racism can already be addictive, so this kind of intervention is not helpful. When an addiction is being fed by a form of subtle indoctrination, how do we counteract that? I've often wondered if I can parallel racism with addiction. The habit of bias craves validation, and when someone on a pedestal seems to agree, it's a reward. The tricky part is that this happens subtly. The listener may think if they, someone so smart, sees it this way, maybe I'm right. And the habit of prejudice grows stronger. It's why unlearning bias can be so hard. The brain has learned to get a little pleasure from being justified or feeling justified, even when that feeling comes from the wrong source. Recognizing this pattern, noticing when admiration or authority is guiding beliefs, is the first step in breaking the addictive pattern or addictive habit and learning to choose differently. No one is born thinking that one group of people is better or worse than the other, but the world teaches us patterns, sometimes subtly, sometimes in ways we barely notice. It starts small: a joke at school, a story we hear, a stereotype we see on TV. At first it seems harmless, but over time, if we keep seeing the same messages and saying the same things, it becomes a habit, a way our brain automatically responds to people who are different. You rely on these old ideas more and more, even when they start causing tension or problems. These beliefs feel automatic. Questioning them is uncomfortable. That is why I think racism, is like an addiction, because it's a lot like when someone picks up a drink or a habit that feels comforting at first. Eventually, it can feel automatic, like the brain expects it. And habits, even harmful ones, are hard to break. Like any habit, it can be undone, but it takes awareness and effort. So we're getting to the painful part: withdrawal. Breaking a habit, especially one that has been part of us for years, isn't easy. Think about trying to give up sugar or caffeine. At first, it's uncomfortable. Headaches, cravings, restlessness. Racism works in the same way. Early discomfort. You notice your old assumptions. You feel guilty or defensive. That's normal. Peak struggle. Old habits keep sneaking back. Social situations feel awkward. The brain craves the certainty of old ideas. It's going to be a long haul, because even after months of old reactions may linger. But each time you notice them, pause and choose differently. The habit weakens. Over time, new ways of thinking and relating take root. Life becomes fuller, connections deeper, and the world feels larger. So how to change the habit? Notice your patterns. Pay attention to the jokes, assumptions, or thoughts that slip out automatically. Listen to stories, real experiences from people who are different from you. Build empathy faster than facts. Connect and cooperate. Working alongside people from diverse backgrounds on projects in the community can change habits naturally. Reflect on choices. Even every time you catch yourself repeating a bias, pause and decide if you want to respond differently. Be patient. Habits take time to break. Expect slips, but keep going. Like recovering from any habit, the key is consistency and support. The good news is racism can be unlearned. It's not about punishment. It's not about shame. It's not about pointing fingers. It's about choice, awareness, and growth. The world outside old assumptions is richer and clear and much fuller, but it starts with noticing our own patterns and taking the first step. Ask yourself, do I want to stay in the narrow comfort of old habits, which is much easier, or do I want to step into a wider, more connected world, which is much more frightening? When you think that you may, as a racist, alienated yourself from black people, how the hell are you going to start relating to them, start talking to them, having empathy, when you've built up inside this wall that tells you they're dangerous, they're hostile, they're angry, they're animalistic, they're lazy, all of the stereotypes that you've been taught over years? How do you then wake up one morning and say, oh, I'm going to decide I'm not going to be racist anymore? It's not going to happen. It's going to happen when you have all those stereotypes and you think, are they reasonable? That lady over there that I was speaking to, that black lady, she seemed all right. She didn't seem like the stereotype. Maybe, just maybe, they're not all like that. Maybe they're like that lady at work who I work with, who I feel comfortable with. They'll always, we used to hear a lot where they used to say, oh, he's all right for a black, or she's all right for a black, or they used to have, I mean, I know there are other people who are discriminated against, but I'm just talking about black people just because I'm black. But you will find that it is difficult, and it is just about just wanting to change. That's the first step. And then you take it slowly and don't be too harsh. And that's all.